at least 94. And 94, we've been like partners in crime in the aspect of the crew in Philadelphia is very advanced crew. They basically invested in a lot of the actual bibliography, and out of that broke out a group of sisters that basically were practitioners in a lot of things. And you might have heard me talk about these sisters. They came down to the Hemmitt Summit, and so they did a whole lot of practitioner, a whole lot of rituals, and there was a big group of these sisters and all over the course of the 90s. But they only had, but out of all the sisters, there was one key major male. There's a few others, but there was one major male that was associated with the sisters in Philadelphia. A brother named Barcisi. And this brother, money was no object when it came to getting. If I told him there's a $5,000 book, you go get it. He's that kind of brother, So the sisters had a party the other night. They had a party, and he said, man, they was drinking and dancing, and he said it was just unbelievable. And he stepped outside of the place, I guess to go home or whatever. Stepped out in the street and got hit by a car. The car hit him hard too. This car literally, because he was up under the car. And got out from up under the car, walked 3 miles to his sister's house because he was drunk. The sister brought him back to the scene. Everybody just know he dead and all, And he didn't even have a scratch on him, but one little scratch on his face and then on his hand. And the next thing, that healed up. But nothing wrong with his body. You see, so this is the kind of stuff that's spilling over as far as that immortal realm. My mother yesterday got in a wreck in South Carolina, in Mullins, got in a wreck and totaled the car. Somebody hit her and totaled the car, so she's supposed to be messed up. And in so many words, as the airbag came on and stuff, and she made more worried about her Mercedes. I was like, well, hell, my brother got you that damn 300 Mercedes. He know how to find these things for like $3,000, so it was no big deal. It was like, well, shit, you get another car. But anyway, she only had a headache, and so she went to the doctor. Her blood pressure was extremely high, so they're trying to get the blood pressure down. But meanwhile, that's a whole ploy, because to get the blood pressure down to kill her. That's what the deal is. As long as the blood pressure is high, you see what I'm saying, the melanin is able to get around the body and do the healing properties. And all this. It's when the blood pressure is down that the melanin is dormant and don't get around the body. And like I said the last time, the only difference is basically water. You stroke out and you do all this stuff based on dehydration, but not necessarily based on this high blood. This is the greatest hoax. And so when black people have high blood, just like I said, they're supposed to. So when she got in the wreck and all, she only had a headache, and she probably was just having a headache because the body immediately started to go to work, and the melanin had to go and get to certain points, so therefore nothing can happen or can heal in a few minutes. So anyway, she ended up walking away from this thing, and the car is totaled. So here's another incident that happened within days from each other. So we know that this realm is spilling over. And we'll go into some of that tomorrow, but what happened is, I talked about this in there's a book, Budge's book, The Egyptian Idea of the Afterlife, a book he had out. They call it Egyptian Religion, but it's called The Egyptian Idea of the Afterlife. And really, he did a lot of translating and stuff, but the explanation is really not that explanatory in his particular books. But it's interesting, he just translated what he saw, but there was a lot of pictorial aspects and stuff of the hieroglyphics. And one scene in some of the papyruses, they got this table, and they have all this food on this table. Now the food on the table represents the banquet room. The banquet room comes in mythology. When you made it to the banquet room, it's when the people are getting ready to come out of long age of suffering. So in so many words, it's this great grand party. You used to like partying on the mothership. So the papyruses have tables just full of food, and at that particular time, it would show like fish, bread, grapes, anything in traditional aspect of what they considered feastful food or whatever in the ancient world. which does not necessarily mean that if you calculate that up to the day, that it would actually be that. It's just a symbol of a festive occasion of the people coming out of the long ages of suffering. In this particular case, these long ages of suffering has nothing to do with us going into slavery. These long ages of suffering has something to do with a certain amount of spirits that's been suffering since creation. Those that were cast down at the foundation of the earth. Talk about that in Revelations. So in actuality, the creation process, in so many words, was a downfall for a primal world gods and goddesses of the feminine realm that existed prior to this particular creation. So this story goes bigger and greater than us going into slavery. That was a condition, in so many words, to get a certain group of people in the bigger picture. A certain group of people in a certain place at a certain time to make this revelation happen. Give you an example, because I want to go back on that party scene thing. To give you an example, we had a conversation about 10 years ago, said, you know, if the Moors had to go up into Spain and taught the Europeans civilization for 700 years, then we might have had a different story. And so at that particular time, 10 years ago, when we was looking at this particular information, the Golden Age of the Moor had just come out. You know, another Moorish book had come out by Ivan Van Sertima. They had just now reprinted Stanley Poole's book on the Moors. And so all this particular information came out about the Moors' conquest in Spain and basically being a part of the people who trained the Europeans. And so at that particular time, we was asking the question, well, this might have been a mistake. But looking at people that know history, know prophecy. They know prophecy, they know history. They understood that there was a bigger picture. The bigger picture was that basically, and I've talked about this before, if they didn't train those particular Europeans, then when we did go into slavery, because it was inevitable, we talked about the papyruses that talked about us going to this deep dormant stage. When we did go into this particular dormant stage, when we came out of this dormant stage, if the doggone European had no education and was savage, then hell, we would be savage in the aspect of we are dead people. So therefore, whatever we benefited from, you see what I'm saying, what little it is, it didn't matter. The European had to be brought up to a certain standard. Now that might have been one of the poorest standards on human history, but still yet. Can you imagine what would be if they didn't go in Spain and they didn't know certain things? And we're trying to piece our history back together? You see, so when you have to look at the bigger picture. Like one sister, she said, damn, I'm sick of these white books. You know, they got this white woman and she's posing near the pyramids and she's doing all that. And I said, you know, you better thank God for them people. To the simple fact, hell, we wasn't doing shit. We in fundamentalism. You know what I'm saying? 98% of us, you know what I'm saying? If you out of that, you just went to Islam or whatever. But basically, we are not a people that's basically researching anything or whatever. We're doing it now and stuff and all, but we got to look at the bigger picture. If it wasn't for some of those particular people doing this, how would we get the particular information? So in so many words, out of this personal thing, you have to look at the bigger picture. And in so many words, Kenneth Grant explained it best when he said that people like C.W. Ledbetter and Blavatsky and all of those were slaves of Awas. Awas being this Heru angel. In so many words, they used these particular people as slaves to write certain things so that we could get those things now. In the book of Enoch, they say that yeah, these people will write lies about you. And they're going to write lies about you, and they're going to stop at every moment to make sure that their history usurps yours, or they co-opt your history, but never tell the truth. But it also says in the book of Enoch, but there will come a day when there will be some people writing for you that would be of the same people as ruling. In so many words, white folks. They say, do not make the mistake and throw the baby out with the bathwater in the aspect of, I ain't reading this shit because it's a white man. In the book of Enoch, it says that there's going to be a group of white folks that's going to write for you. And it said, do not make the mistake, accept the particular information. So what they were talking about was the spirit realm has a way, you see, to override them. Or it has a way to put certain, that 2% black folks that is in white bodies, that Richard King talks about, in certain key positions. You see, in certain key positions, so that they can go in and filibuster some bullshit that the white boy is doing in the other aspect, and they being white and write the truth. Case in point, people like Aleister Crowley, Gerald Massey. You see, people like this, every now and then when they think they got it made, one of them will come up. You see what I'm saying? And even Farrakhan used to say, even if you're talking about white people, every now and then somebody goes against their own nature. Well, hell, we do it every day being white. So my point here is, you got to look at the bigger picture of even going back to this thing about the Moors and why they had to set up certain things, which is very interesting here because where's this? Oh, here it is, right here. Because alcohol. Now we know we had wine, we had beer, but what is the origin of doggone alcohol? Do you know that when the Moors set up the 16 universities, they taught them how to distill alcohol, and all your scotch, your brandy, your bourbon, and all of that particular stuff came from the Moors? This is coming out of the royal art of alchemy and hermeticism. You see what I'm saying? And royal art of alchemy and hermeticism. Well, we know it has to have a connection, because why is it that the gods, even the African gods, require this? You see? Which in actuality, I want to explain, because I think this is very important, because I have hit upon the ultimate elixir in the alchemical proportion that can heal everything, and I'm telling you, this shit is taking Atlanta by a storm. Now, before I go into that, I want to say this one thing. I started having a series of dreams, and I'll go back into this particular part. We're going to pour libations. I started having a series of dreams on the 1st of January. And all of a sudden, the dreams started having more and more people. So what the dreams do, they will put, you could be looking at something of another origin, or something that the description you would not recognize. So what the dream does is it puts people in the dream and certain imagery in the dream of the physical realm so you can recognize it, although what you're really seeing is something of another description or another type of a form. You see, because that world is not made up of the same thing that we are used to in the physical realm. So what they would do is that they will put things that's more recognizable. So as a result, what I was actually seeing was these entities by the thousand in the other world. But as a result, when it came to me in a dream, I was either in a boarding school or a university setting or a major high school or something that has a whole lot of people. In every dream, every night it started getting more and more people. And this happened about 2 or 3 nights, and then I was at this place with all these people, and we ended up leaving, and we ended up in a room where it was these bunch of sisters, looked like they were in the late 60s and early 70s. Real dark skin, they had on all white. It looked like Alabama meal that somebody's cooking. You know what I'm saying? Or either how, you know, they had the sisters in the white at the church. So it looked like an Alabama meal, you know, they had all this food on the table, and all these sisters had on white, and all of them was real dark skinned, but they looked like brothers and sisters from South Carolina, Alabama. Basically, it looked like a southern meal. But the table was loaded full of food. So as a result, I took some of the food and I bit into it. But it tastes like nothing I'd ever tasted before in this particular hemisphere. And it reminds me of what, as it said that, and John Henry Clark talked about this, how the Constantine used to travel with African cooks because it was the best on the planet. And we know that the whole America was founded based on so-called, what's the name, coming over here to try to get spices, trying to go to India to try to get spices. So what John Henry Clark was alluding to today is doggone roots and plants and stuff that was in Africa that we've lost the recipe to, that the modern earth has never tasted. Never tasted. Now we can go around the world and we can find some good ass food. Can you imagine what it could be, a food of 2,000 years ago? It would probably be unbelievable. Just the spices that has been lost, not necessarily that the spices don't grow no more, but the people have forgotten that these particular spices and stuff, you see what I'm saying, could be used for food. And over the years, things deteriorate. So whatever this food must have tasted like, they were the best on the planet. And everything else that we have now on the planet that we think tastes so good has its origin with these particular sisters, or either brothers, or these African sisters that knew how to throw down. Apparently enough to document it that Constantine used to have 7 or 8 African cooks and used to travel with him. That's how good the food was. So as a result, I tasted this food and it was like nothing that I had seen before, but the setting was the same soul food setting, with about a good maybe 7 or 8 black women in white clothes. As a result,